also by my colleagues from different political groups. And I think this conference is a small piece into that long-lasting fight of Georgians in the streets for their European future. Georgians still are fighting for their own European state. They are our heroes, at least for myself. But today also we have to admit, we have to understand that Georgia is the Kremlin's biggest victory so far, as the country has been taken over from within. And it started not yesterday, it started in 2012. At the same time, Kremlin wanted to take from within Ukraine, Moldova, and other countries. They didn't succeed there, but unfortunately, they think they are successful in Georgia. But we're here together to say that we don't agree with such an, evaluation and such a diagnosis of Georgia. I am standing rapporteur in European Parliament on this country. And I think I have to say that we, members of European Parliament from different groups, we were trying and we did as everything we could to do, to put in our resolutions, in our reports, the current situation and the roadmap, how to help Georgians. And of course, for European Union, for us to have larger democracy in European continent. Unfortunately, I also have very fair and open. The assistance of European Union member states and of course institutions sometimes to the struggling Georgians has been weaker than we expected. Sanctions have never been imposed on those responsible except for a few states. Mzia Amaglobeli is still honored with a high award in France, and he is citizen of France, as I was told. The guy who is behind all those tragedies happening now in Georgia. So Sputnik-style media still operates in the EU, in our institutions. And of course, a lot to do. On visa-free regime, maybe we will be talking here, I will not take much time, only one sentence. No one in European Parliament wants to punish Georgian people, no one. But visa-free regime is with a very special framework, with very special, criteria. Every country have to must fulfill, and evaluations, assessments are going for every single country. And we agree among ourselves, at least, that those who are responsible for the situation in the country, those who are, proxies of regime and regime itself, it's not possible they can enjoy visa-free regime as they are enjoying until now. So those issues are on the table for us. I will not take much of your time. And now I would like to ask my colleagues from European Parliament to say a few words before we will start another panels. And first, I would like to give the floor to Sergei Lagodinsky, who is co-chair of Euronest, European Parliament and Eastern Partnership Countries Assembly, which is, responsible or takes care of all Eastern Partnership countries. Sergei Lagodinsky represents the Greens group. He also is shadow rapporteur on Georgia, co-initiator of Mzia Amaglobeli nomination for the Sakharov Prize. And Sergei, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks for allowing me to speak as first. It's not because Don't has been reversed. It's because unfortunately I have to run to chair my next meeting. But it was a huge honor and a duty for me, an obligation for me to join this circle together with Lena, who will also speak on behalf of our group. You know, Georgia is among many post-Soviet, whatever you want to call it, Eastern European countries, always the most freedom-loving, the most joyous nation and country. And sorry to speak in stereotypes, but I think positive stereotypes are stereotypes that are allowed. And it pains me to see that this country is now being ruled by a spirit of fear, by a spirit of anti-liberalism, by a spirit of attitude that looks backwards and not into the future. It's always been the case, and I think it's a trivial thing to say, that the first ones who are targets in situations like this are minorities, are civil society, and the media. And that's why Mzia has become so emblematic, not just because she's so courageous. She is courageous. I mean, what she's done and how she behaved and has been behaving is an example to all of us. But it is also emblematic for Georgia becoming, I would call it, the most innovative laboratory of how to suppress freedom in a new way. And that brings a lot of responsibility to us, to people, to MEPs who are sitting here, to MEPs and colleagues who are sitting in the hall, who are all dedicated to this fight for freedom in Eastern Europe and in the Caucasus. And I'm very proud to be able to contribute to this event and also to the nomination. I think we can say it openly, which we all support as much as we can, nomination of Mzia for the Sakharov Award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergei. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for what are you doing. Thank you for being creative and being cooperative with many members of European Parliament. I feel sometimes that we are like a political group of those who are understanding this fight, and we are not saying that, oh, you are from one group, you are from another group. We are like-minded people, and this, I think, very helpful for countries in this region. Now, Lena Schilling, also from Greens, also 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. And Sergei has already said a lot. And I'm here today with also strong emotion. In May, I attended one of Mzia's trials, unrightful trials. And what I saw there was brave people standing in front of the hall, standing there side to side with Mzia. And that is what we need to do every day. Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. These are not just words of history. These are words that are counting today in Georgia and in many other places, but especially we can see it right now and here. And Mzia is representing everything that authoritarian powers fear: truth, courage, the belief that journalism can still protect democracy. And her imprisonment is not only a crime against her, it is a warning to all who still believe that Georgia's future is in the hands and together with Europe, a European future. And that's something we need to fight for all together, more than ever in these times. And these are not just pathetic words I'm saying here. This is a political fight, and all of you are fighting it every day. So I'm super grateful to be able to fight side to side with you, with my colleagues here, and to be a bit brave with Mzia, because she is. And Mzia refuses to be silent, and so must we, as members of the European Parliament, as civil society, as people who are fighting. And this is bigger than just a case from a journalist that is unrightful. It is a case that is showing in which direction Georgia is going right now, in an autocratic regime that's under Russian influence. And I think we need to say it loud and clear to also counterpart the narratives that the far right is spreading in this house, not just about Mzia, not just about civil society that is standing up, but about the Russian regime and what it is doing with a lot of people all around the world, but especially also in Georgia today. Supporting Mzia means defending a free Europe and a free Georgia. And this is a path we have to take step to step together. There is no future for us all if we lose this fight against the Russian regime, because this fight is also ours. It's Europe's fight. And therefore, thank you so much for having us here. Thank you so much for making the way here. And let's fight this fight till Georgia is free again.
Thank you very much. And Lena, you know, fight for freedom is always pathetic. So don't be afraid to be pathetic. It's very important in these times, especially where if you want to stay on the right side of the history. I think it's other nations represented here will not be insulted if I will say it's not accidentally that two of us Lithuanians are here in front of you, because for us, for Lithuanians, Georgian fight, Sakartvelo fight for European Union looks like our own fight. We know what does it mean to live under the totalitarian regime, and I can imagine that people in Georgia, they don't want to be back, as we also never give up to fight for our independence and freedom. So Petras Auštrevičius, Renew, freedom fighter from Lithuania.
Thank you, Rasa, and good afternoon, everybody. Indeed, so we have a special, probably, sense of historical responsibility to support those who fight for freedom and justice. It's much correlated. So never give up, as we've been taught a good lesson by our fathers and grandfathers. So now we have to translate our language into the support for those who are in this fight. And there is a lot of need for this fight, I have to admit. You know, the Georgian dream authorities, I mean, they didn't invent anything new in trying to, deconstruct democratic structures in Georgia. They simply quickly learning lessons from a bit neighbors to the north and east. So that's, and it goes against the will of Georgian people. Although the authorities try to present it as doing something good, justified, and bringing country to a better future. But it's wrong. It's a lie, and it goes against a policy line chosen by Georgians long ago. Indeed, new restrictions against free word, freedoms. We have seen so much before, and probably we will see again after some time. But we have to be very clear that this time in Georgia, we see a kind of historical events which might, turn the country's future into something very dark if we fail. So that's why I would call our event as a signal of solidarity with Georgians, bringing hope back. You are not alone in this fight. You really have understanding and support in Europe and in the world. And again, it's a very strong signal of support to Mzia Amaglobeli. She herself, she became a very symbolic figure, not abandoning, positions of free media, freedom of expression. And I know how much those authoritarian regimes are afraid of free speech. It's simply a deadly, kind of hit to them, because free word and expression simply disclose all the lies and the essence of any authoritarian regime. So that's why I thank you all political groups and my colleagues behind this event. I'm very proud that Mzia Amaglobeli, indeed, Sergei mentioned before, is a nominee for Sakharov Freedom of Thoughts Prize. I hope she will move forward with this contest in the European Parliament. I'm very hopeful for right decision in this regard. And in any case, we will stay fighting for Mzia and for free Georgia and European Georgia. Thank you.
The way Petros is among co-initiators of Mzia's nomination for the Sakharov Prize. And now I will move to my right, but in the parliament he is more to the left, Social Democrat representative, coordinator in AFET, Foreign Affairs Committee from this powerful group. It's very important to have people like you, Nacho Sanchez Amor, understanding this very important fight for the future of the whole Europe, because you are coming from Spain, and that's a little bit, how to say, different region than we represent, and we are a little bit closer, but I always feel that you are understanding in a very clear way the need of your country, other countries, and European Union to support this fight. You are also supporting the Sakharov Prize for Mzia, and floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Rasa. Yes, I'm the strange guy coming from the extreme south of Spain, not being to Baltic or Lithuanian.
So even more important.
But no, I have been dealing with Georgia for the last 11 years, from OSCE and other positions. And I know Georgian trade better than some of you
Yes.
for other reasons. I'm representing the S&D. If you notice, we are running low of banners, but it's just only to underline that this is a very inter-party, intergroup, let's say, nomination and support to Mzia. I never met her, and I never had the opportunity to do it, even if I tried twice. Last May, I was part of a mission of a DRUA committee, Human Rights Committee of the Parliament, to the country. And even if we are not allowed, the official policy of the European Union that we fully endorse in not to engage directly with the authorities, we encountered a way to convey to the authorities not to engage directly, to request a visit to Mzia, that it was denied by the same, let's say, middleman or interlocutor. I have been in Tbilisi last week, and we did the same as an S&D group with a mission of my group, and we requested a visit to Mzia, and the answer has been different. And sometimes the nuances are important. Now we have been requested to directly write to the Ministry of Justice. And we agreed with the ambassador that the right way to do is to convey an official message from the embassy, and we did it. And the request has been sent to the minister. The Sakharov Prize is a mix between personalities and situations. It's about persons that has been depicted by Petros and other colleagues being heroic in some way, or being resilient, or supporting the liberty that they enjoy in the past. And it's also to raise awareness about the situation. And this is an excellent candidacy for that reason, because the persons, of course, enjoys this image of irreprehensible professional practice, and is representing what is one of the speedy process of backsliding democracy in the world. Meaning, to cover what happened in the last 2 years, 2 years and a half in Georgia, it takes almost 10 or 12 years in Turkey, for example. But as some colleagues said, they are using exactly the same toolkit. exactly the same toolkit, is to asphyxiate freedom of media, is to asphyxiate in any possible way the civil society, meaning the FARA, foreign agents, the law on grants, in a way that these remains of the liberty that the country enjoys in the past disappear. But the good news is everyone we met last week, they were blatant, clear to us. We are resisting, we are continuing, we are not leaving the country. In the most difficult way, in a voluntary means, not having the possibility to receive grants from outside, everyone said, we are resisting, we are fighting. This is our country, we are not abandoning. And it's good news, Rasa and colleagues, that after the trap that happened last Saturday, in which a minor, tiny part of the protest was lured to a trap and to trying to offer the image of violence, an enormous amount of money, of people decided to stay in Rustaveli and not to approach the trap. And even after the threat of the prime minister saying, whatever stays in Rustaveli, we are considering part of the plot, people came back to Rustaveli on Sunday and Monday. And this is the good news. The resilience of the Georgian society represented by Mzia is still alive, and it's for enduring in the coming months. Thank you, Rasha.
Thank you very much. And now we will leave this floor and we will leave the main, how to say, rights to moderator Georgi Lomsadze. He is a journalist and storyteller from Georgia. He has covered Georgia and former Soviet Union, is written so, for 20 years. One of the most prominent voices from the Caucasus. Georgi makes its job to explain this complex. And myself, I have to apologize. I have to run to my group because there we are debating Sakharov Prize issues. So forgive me, I have to do my job until the end.
You are needed there.
Yes, I need it there. So, Georgi, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe I will be back if I will be able.
Oh, that would be great.
Thank you, Nuka. Thank you, Nuka.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming and for your interest in Mzia's case. My name is Georgi Lomsadze. I'm a journalist from Georgia. It is my privilege to moderate this discussion and hopefully to add my humble voice to the cause of Mzia. We will now play a little video about Mzia, related to Mzia. So, all of you, and then I will introduce today's panelists.
Mzia Amaglobelis წერილი. ფაქტი, რის გამოც დღეს ბრალდებული ვარ, შედეგია იმ რეპრესიული, მოღალატეობრივი, ძალადობრივი, ადამიანის სიტყვის და გამოხატვის წინააღმდეგ მიმართული პროცესების, რომელიც ბოლო 1 წელია ვითარდება და ჩვენს ყოველდღიურ ცხოვრებაში ფეხს იკიდებს, როგორც დიქტატურა. ჩემს მოცემულობაში ნებისმიერი ის მოქალაქე შეიძლება აღმოჩნდეს, ვისაც დემოკრატიული, სამართლიანი, ევროპა, რუსული გავლენებისგან თავისუფალ საქართველოში უნდა ცხოვრება. იბრძოლეთ, სანამ არის.
Mzia Amaglobeli გააყალეს ამ კანტი.
ვეცნობოდი პლაკატს, რომლის გამოც დღეს აქციის მონაწილეები დააკავეს. ფიქრობ, რომ აუცილებლად ეს გამოხატავს თავისუფლების შეზღუდვა.
ბატუმელების მენეჯერს აკავებენ, მზია ამაღლობელი გააკავეს ახლა ხანს.
ირაკეთ გებუაძის სამსახურებრივი საქმეები გაღიზიანებული მზია ამაღლობელი შვილისწების მოტივით თავს რაიხაიეთ გებუაძეს ძლიერად მოხაჩა კულტურზე მისგან მიატრიალა და საქმეში დააფრთხილი. მეძება გათვალისწინებული გახდა საქართველოს სასამართლოს კოდექსის 353 პრიმა მუგნის პირველი ნაწილი და ბრალისების შემთხვევაში სახების სახეთ და ზომად კანონის თვალსაჩინო თავისუფლების აღკვეთას 4-დან 7 წლამდე ვარით.
ეს პირველი სხდომა იქნება, სადაც არ იქნება არც ვიდეო გადაღება, არც ფოტო, არც საქმების ჩაწერის უფლებაც კი შეგვიზღუდეს ჟურნალისტებს. ისე ჩაკეტეს სასამართლოს კარი და ისევ ეს არის ის ადგილი, სადაც ჯერ კიდევ შეიძლება ფოტოს და ვიდეოს გადაღება.
მიხარია რომ ისევ ხედავ ჩემს მეგობრებს, ოჯახს, გულშემატკივრებს. თუმცა უხერხულობის განცდაც მაქვს, რომ ისევ მოგიწიათ ამ სასამართლო დარბაზში მოსვლა. ამ სასამართლო დარბაზში არაერთ გზის კაფეო დამიფიქსირებია და ახლაც განმეორდები. პასუხისმგებლობას არ გავურბივარ. განსხვავებით ეგრეთ წოდებული დაზარალებული გებუაძისა. იმეორებ. პასუხისმგებლობას არ გავურბივარ და მგონია კანონში არსებობს ჩემი ქმედების სილის გაჭნის პასუხისმგებლობისთვის ადეკვატური მუხლი. თქვენი გადასაწყვეტია რას დაარქმევთ მას. თავდასხმას თუ დამამცირებელ შეურაცხყოფილი ადამიანის იმპულსურ რეაქციას. სილის გაჭრა. სასამართლომ გადაწყვეტილებას არ უნდა მიიღოს დღე, არ ვიცი, ხვალ, ზეგ. მინდა იცოდეთ, რომ თავს გამარჯვებულად მივიჩნევ.
ისე მოხდა, რომ ამ ძალიან მნიშვნელოვან წინააღმდეგობას ქალის სახე მიეცა და მზიამ მისცა ეს დატვირთვა ამ წინააღმდეგობას. აბა ძალიან ლოგიკურიც არის, რომ ადამიანი როგორც გითხარით, მთელი ცხოვრება პრაქტიკულად საკუთარი სამუშაო ოთახიდან არ გამოსული, გახდა ყველაზე სადერო ფიგურა.
იბრძოლეთ. სანამ გვიანი არ არის. იბრძოლეთ ყველგან, სადაც არ უნდა იყოთ. ქვეყანაში თუ ქვეყნის გარეთ, სოფელსა თუ ქალაქში, ქუჩებსა თუ აუდიტორიებში, საზოგადოებრივ და სამუშაო სივრცეებში. იყავით მამაცები. გაუფრთხილდით და გააძლიერეთ ერთმანეთს. არ დაუშვათ საქართველოს იზოლირება ცივილიზებული სამყაროსგან. თავისუფლება მზია ამაღლობელს და თავისუფლება ყველა რეჟიმის პატრონს.
Let me quickly introduce the presenters today. We have Hatia Jinjikhadze, long-time expert in Georgia and advocate for media rights. Hatia is Deputy Director for the Civil Society Foundation. We have Gillian Gallagher, a renowned human rights lawyer who is also representing Mzia internationally. She's with Doughty Street Chambers. And finally, we have Irma Dimitradze, Mzia Amaglobeli's colleague from Batumelebi and Netgazeti newspapers. For some of us here, Mzia is a colleague. For others, she's a friend. But for all of us, she is an inspiration and symbol of resilience. and moral clarity and fortitude in the face of wanton injustice and repression. She came to be the very epitome of Georgia's struggle for freedom, progress, and a place in the free world. We also have another, we were meant to have another speaker today, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. President Salome Zourabichvili will be, was meant to be here, but she will introduce, she sent her remarks via video and will play it now. So.
Thank you very much, all of you, the members of the European Parliament, who are the organizers of this conference of Freedom Behind Bars, and all the attendees to this very special meeting that I am glad to be attending, even if it's distance attending. I would have loved to be there physically, but unfortunately it was not possible. And I would love to be with you at this time to share my thoughts on Mzia Amaglobeli, who has become, in the fight that Georgia is developing today against dictatorship, against Russian influence and Russian hybrid war, she has become a symbol of this fight because she's one of those, and not the only one, but one of those that have been imprisoned without any reason, without any valid reason, just because she represents the freedom of the press, just because she represents someone that has been over 30 years fighting for those civil liberties, for defending the rights of the minorities, for defending the possibility to express dissenting voice when at different times in Adjara, which is a region of origin, when there was a regime that was not allowing free speech already at the beginning of Georgian independence. All these times, Mzia, at different episodes of the development of Georgian democracy, has been at the forefront of fighting for democracy. And it's only logical that when started this last episode of our struggle, since the decision by the Prime Minister to turn back on our European path, to violate the constitution of Georgia that says that we have to work and all institutions have to work towards European integration, Euro-Atlantic integration. It's only logical that Mzia, this small woman, became the flag of this protest, peaceful protest movement. I will never forget, because I attended the last part of process, I will never forget, it lasted for 11 hours, and Mzia was standing during these 11 hours because she did not accept to be sitting on the bench of people that are condemned. She is innocent, she was innocent, and she's part of this very peaceful protest, despite some attempts recently to create some false scenarios of false revolutions. She is really the face of the peaceful fight of the Georgian people for their freedom, for the return to the European path, for defending all the civil liberties and the freedom of the press. And if there is something that is today even more at stake than anything else, because the peaceful protests are continuing, it's the freedom of the press, freedom of the media that are directly attacked. Of course, first the regional media that are the most small and without any resources, so the most easily attacked, and then the main opposition channels, or independent, more to say, channels that are directly in the attempt of the authorities to limit the freedom of expression and freedom of media. We all know that we are today more than ever dependent on this free information to continue our fight and our struggle to return Georgia to its European path, to return Georgia to its independence, and not to fall under the Russian influence, under the Russian hybrid war that we are waging against since more than the last 316 days of the peaceful protests, because that fight started more than 2 years ago and is continuing and will continue until we return Georgia to free media, freedom, and independence on its European path.
So, a very smart journalist, the writer, once said that a half-truth is the most cowardly of lies. And that is exactly the case with Mzia in Georgia. The government propaganda is focusing on the fact that she slapped a police chief, but everything else that was happening to her or to Georgian media or to Georgian freedom at that point is left unsaid. With this, I'd like to ask Hatia to tell us about the context of what happened and the situation with Georgian media then and now. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgi. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank the hosts of this event and the organizers. I've known Mzia Amaglobeli for many, many years, but today I would like to speak not about her as a person or as a professional, but I want to show this audience how Mzia's story fits into the general context of media freedom in Georgia and the context of civil resilience and pro-European protests that are still going on in our country. Mzia has been in prison for 275 days now, but prior to her imprisonment, she and all of us, we witnessed something unprecedented happening in Georgia. I'm talking about violence against journalists that took place in November, December last year. These are the journalists who were covering pro-European rallies, and they were brutally attacked, physically attacked, beaten, arrested by the riot police. And we saw some very disturbing, shocking images of journalists being brutally beaten on live on the air. Well, this was the times when many journalists decided to get rid of the press signs, not to wear anything that would identify them as journalists, because the press signs, the vests where they had the signs on, did not protect them at all. It rather made them a target because they were chased as journalists. They were chased as they were filming, taking pictures and showing the pictures of ongoing events to the public. The question is, who was punished for that violence? And the answer is no one. Not a single perpetrator has been either prosecuted or even interrogated. Mzia Amaglobeli was arrested on January 15th, and she had to follow the further developments vis-à-vis Georgian media and civil society from the prison. And she witnessed another type of attack against media as she was behind the bars. But this was not coming from the police officers. This was coming from lawmakers. The Georgian Dream Parliament adopted a set of draconian laws against media and civil society. And today, Georgian media is negatively affected by at least 4 different pieces of legislation that make their work almost impossible. These laws affect both online media and broadcast media, and it has a terrible chilling effect on independent reporting. It cuts basically all donor funding, which online media heavily relies on, and it removes all the protective safeguards for the freedom of speech in this country. So this is the situation that Georgian media is operating or trying to operate right now. How it affects the media outlets that were founded by Mzia, Batumelebi and Netgazeti very badly. They still try to operate, but they may not be able to do so anytime soon. And it's amazing that they are still reporting. They are still telling the stories of, revealing the stories of corruption, of state capture, politicized justice. Like many other colleagues of theirs, Netgazeti is there in the courts, which are now closed, and the reporting is banned in the courthouse. They are telling us the stories. They are the source of solidarity, which is so widespread in our society these days, as they are nourishing our sense of solidarity with the stories that they tell about students, about university professors, about Western diplomats who are labeled by the Georgian Dream officials as agents, traitors, etc., etc. And these media outlets who are in this very difficult situation, I want you to know that they are probably one of the best shields against anti-Western propaganda, because the stories that they tell serves the truth. And this truth is a very strong weapon against the rampant propaganda which has prevailed in our country. We all, I think it would be very sincere if I say that we all appreciate all the awards and recognition that Mzia has received internationally. And we had one coming from Prague a couple of days ago. It's important not only for the journalistic community, but it's important for all Georgians who see Mzia's recognition as a reward for their tireless efforts to continue on the European path, the path that Georgian people have chosen a long time ago. But this road is not easy, and we will not be able to survive alone on this road. We are grateful for all the response, all the statements, resolutions, and reports that reflect the situation in Georgia adequately. But the response is still slow. We need bold decisions. We need efficient, maybe even unconventional mechanisms to help Georgian people to make a U-turn and get back on the European path. This is not only about financial support that could be rendered to Georgian media outlets or civil society organizations. This is also about legal mechanisms, so that if local efforts fail, there are international efforts, there are collaborations that have leverage over the policies led by the Georgian Dream Party. And finally, Mzia doesn't have a Western education. She was born in a remote region of Georgia. But believe me, her understanding of democracy, freedom of speech, equality, is so much better than of those politicians who have earned their academic degrees in European capitals or made their careers in the international organizations. Because she is the one who is genuinely European. She is the one who carries those values, like many, many other Georgians who are right out in the streets these days. And before I finish, I want to mention the new set of amendments that the Georgian Dream is adopting right now as we speak. They're working on it. Amendments to the Administrative Code of Georgia and amendments to the Criminal Code of Georgia, basically killing the right of freedom of assembly and freedom of speech in my country. This is targeting not only, specifically this set of amendments is targeting not only political organizations or unions or whatsoever, they are targeting individuals who may face imprisonment challenges if they go out and protest against whatever, anything, basically. I was thinking before I came here, what would Mzia tell this audience if she were here? And I think, or this is at least how I see it, considering her, famous phrase about keeping the fight. I guess she would tell you that Georgia keeps fighting. Help us fight until it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Hatia, for those words. Now we'll pass the word to Killian, who will speak more about the legal aspects and also the international weight of this case.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming today. I'm conscious of how busy a week this is and how valuable your time is. We really appreciate you being here and showing solidarity with Mzia and with her incredibly brave colleagues who've joined us today at great risk to themselves. I'm sure I'm not alone in sitting in the room feeling hugely angry, having watched that video, which is very shocking, and then having just heard now about the latest developments. And something that was occurring to me just while that video was on and while I was feeling that white hot rage at what is happening in Georgia and how indifferent so much of the world is to what's happening in Georgia is that remarkable quote from Maya Angelou, who says, "You must not be bitter, so use that anger. Yes, you write it, you paint it, you dance it, you march it, you vote it, you do everything about it, you talk it, never stop talking it." And I think we have got to take that kind of shock that so many of us are feeling when we see those images on screen and when we see what's behind the fig leaf, which has resulted in Mzia being in prison now since January and getting a 2-year sentence. I think we've got to take that and make sure we keep shouting from the rooftops about this disgraceful case and shouting from the rooftops about what's happening to the people of Georgia. I think we've got to take that feeling of white hot rage and alchemize it and try and convert it into action. So what I wanted to talk to you just briefly about today is a little bit of background on Mzia's journalism and what she stands for and why this is a case which should really matter to the European Parliament. I want to tell you a little more about the legal background and just how ludicrous it is that Mzia was arrested in the first place, let alone been imprisoned since January, and then turn to what should happen next. So first of all, on Mzia's journalism and what she stands for, I wanted to draw a link between Mzia and 2 other remarkable women who share many features in common. They're all clients of mine. So Mzia, in prison in Georgia, make no mistake, for being a journalist and for speaking truth to power, because that is what her case is really about. But also Maria Ressa, my client from the Philippines, who won the Nobel Peace Prize and who faced a barrage of lawsuits for being a journalist, for speaking truth to power. And then thirdly, woman who's very well known to many of you here, Daphne Caruana Galizia, assassinated in Malta in 2017 for being a journalist and for speaking truth to power. And I represent her bereaved family. I wanted to link those three women because all of those remarkable women have been targeted for their journalism, for speaking out, and for standing up, and also for what they represent in their countries and the importance of the media outlets which they're running. One of those women won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2021, rightly acknowledging the vital link between journalism, democracy, and peace. One is dead. One is in jail, losing her eyesight, and needs our support. Now, in the doc earlier this year, Zia looked defiant, and she was holding up a book, which you might have seen on screen. And the book that she was holding up was Maria Ressa's book, How to Stand Up to a Dictator. You saw it in the video. And that's what Zia has been doing, standing up to a dictatorship, in essence, to an autocratic regime. And that's why what her case represents could not be more important. She's now got the dubious honour of being the first female journalist imprisoned since the country's independence in 1991. And it's important to remember that the history of Zia's journalism and the history of Georgia are intertwined. Zia turned 50 this year while in prison in Georgia. I mean, what a place to spend your 50th birthday. But of course, she was 15, just about to turn 16, when Georgia seceded from the Soviet Union in 1991, on the second anniversary of the Soviet military crackdown on a large pro-independence rally in Tbilisi in 1989. She was a teenager at that formative time. She was only 25 when she co-founded the Batumelebi website with Etter, her colleague, in 2001. And they went on to launch the national news website Netgazeti in 2010. And it's just remarkable that you have women who are so young, who'd been forged in those fires of what they saw in teenage years, setting up these remarkable media organizations which have done such important work, and both are rightly regarded as unbiased, trustworthy news sources in Georgia's deeply polarized media. And right from the outset in 2001, their news sites have carried searing investigative journalism, fearless reporting, in-depth reporting on government policies and regional developments. And they've spoken out for years on minority rights, corruption, and they've stood up to Russian excesses in the region. And now that Zia is behind bars, as she has been since January, her colleagues have continued to fight that fight at great risk to themselves, including Irma, who sits beside me here today. Now, rightly, in 2015, 10 years ago, one of the European Press Prize, the Frit Ord Foundation and the Zeit Foundation Prize, went to their media organizations because of the fact that they weren't afraid of censorship and repression, and because of the fact that what these media outlets do, and what Zia does and what Zia's colleagues do, is all about European values, the vital importance of freedom of expression, the vital link between freedom of expression and democracy. And it's no surprise that over the years, because Zia trod on powerful toes, she was targeted by successive authorities for it. And one thing that I think is a critical part of this picture is that in 2020, Netgazeti launched its Russian language version, designed to improve access to information for Georgia's non-Georgian speaking citizens, including ethnic minorities, residents in conflict regions, and the broader South Caucasus. Now, that, of course, angered the Russian authorities, and the website was banned in Russia. In 2022, the Russian language versions of the sites were blocked by the Russian communications regulator. And there is a clear link between that and what we've then seen this year. Now, the cases against her, in brief, are dressed up as one thing, but essentially they amount to conspiracy to commit journalism. That's what these cases are truly about. They're designed to send a signal to others, and they're emblematic of that escalating repression in Georgia. Now, she was initially detained for placing a protest sticker that read, "Georgia goes on strike." You saw it on the video. It's about the size of my mobile phone. So putting that sticker on the wall was the original reason that she was detained. Now, Zia had attended the protests, a rare evening, as I understand it, when she left the office. She'd attended the protest because she learned people were being detained for putting up posters, putting up stickers, chanting, "Sticking up posters is not a crime." And she went there to say, this is something which should not be criminal. And she put up that sticker, and then she's originally arrested for that reason. And then she was released briefly and then rearrested hours later. Now, you saw on that video a flavor of what happened to her. I mean, many of you in the room who are women will know the utter terror of being manhandled in the way that we saw there. And what we saw there was state-sanctioned violence against women. We saw the way in which she was being mistreated, the terrifying way in which she's pushed to the ground. She has a range of people over her. And the context of that symbolic slap, the very brief slap that you saw, is that after that terrifying period, and you simply can't separate it out. And as you've just heard, despite the range of people who physically manhandled her and treated her in that way during that period, not a single police officer has been held to account. This case is essentially gaslighting on a grand scale, where a person who is the victim, Mzia, has now been presented as being the perpetrator. And you can see the lie in that footage that you all just watched. And it should make you white hot with anger, because this case is frankly a disgrace, a total disgrace. It's a complete violation of what we should see, and we should see the state protecting rather than the state targeting. Mzia has then been charged with a range of cases. She was charged with an administrative case under Article 173 for insulting and resisting police officers, when in truth she was being insulted and physically manhandled by the police. She was charged with an administrative case under Article 150 for, get this, distortion of building appearance. That's the charge for that sticker, which was up for a grand total of about 30 seconds on a wall, distortion of building appearance. And then most seriously of all, she was charged with a criminal case under Article 353 for an alleged attack on a police officer, which carried a sentence of 4 to 7 years, minimum 4 years. Now, that was for that brief altercation that you saw. Although no injuries were sustained by the officer, forensic reports confirm this. And by contrast, Mzia herself had visible injuries, including bruises on her shoulders and under her breasts, from what you saw there. And what we then had, after multiple procedural and substantive violations of her rights, was in August, at the very last moment in the trial, after the defence team had set out very clearly why the relevant elements of the article had not been satisfied, the judge then, at the very last minute, changed the charge and simply said, well, she's convicted on a completely different offence, something which the defence had never had an opportunity to respond to. And she got a 2-year sentence, which she's now serving. So that's what she's serving because of the footage that you saw there. And this case is deeply, deeply concerning. Very clear violation of the European Convention on Human Rights, very clear violation of international law. She also, I'm afraid, during the time that she's been in custody, has had a real deterioration in her health and a deterioration in her eyesight. So she's down to only 10% sight in one eye, and that is irreversible. And she wrote recently in a piece in The Guardian, "When I was free, but already expecting arrest, I used to joke that prison would give me the time I always lacked. Finally, I could read. But here in Rustavi Women's Colony number 5, I've almost lost my eyesight. So now I write in encroaching darkness about the darkness that's falling across my country, Georgia." Now, it seems to me here that we should take heart from those words that echoed around Malta after Daphne's death. Speak the truth, although your voice shakes. Because Mzia spoke the truth, although her voice shook, and although she was frightened sometimes about what would happen, and she's been frightened in prison. She embodies that principle of speaking the truth, although your voice shakes, as does this remarkable woman and this remarkable woman sitting to either side of me. And Mzia herself has made clear in that recent piece that she wrote about how important it is to her that she gets hope from those protesting on the streets. And she said this, "I've moments of weakness. Sometimes my eyes fill with tears, but I try not to stay in that state for long. The truth is, I've no other choice. This illegitimate government is trying to abolish journalism, the profession to which I've devoted 25 years of my life. My colleagues are in mortal danger simply for doing their job. For me to stay silent now would be to betray them, myself, and 60 other political prisoners in Georgia today. Outside these prison walls, people have taken to the streets for 9 months straight, holding EU flags aloft. They've been drenched by water cannons, suffocated by tear gas, brutalized by riot police, yet they refuse to surrender. Their determination is our hope." And we have another woman who I think, can we show the video? We've got another woman who wanted to join us today, who sent a message, who's the author of that book that was being held up by Mzia when she was in the dock. And if we could play that now, that'd be wonderful.
Honorable members of the European Parliament, I regret I can't be with you in Brussels today. Mzia Amaglobeli and I share the same lawyer, Keelan Gallagher, who represents us both in our struggles for justice. The European Parliament must pay attention to what is happening in Georgia. Students are risking everything for democratic values. Journalists continue shining light on the truth. Mzia Amaglobeli has become the symbol of this brave opposition and end of independent journalism in Georgia. International solidarity sustained me through the darkest times. It reminded me and Rappler that we were not alone. Mzia needs the same solidarity now. She's been in prison since January. That's 9 months. Her colleagues keep her media organization alive under tremendous pressure, but they can't do this alone. This is a critical moment for Mzia and for Georgia. More than 310 days of daily protests. The values Europe claims to uphold are being tested in Tbilisi. Silence sends a dangerous message. Mzia deserves your solidarity. Georgia deserves your solidarity. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you for those fiery speeches and for saying everything that needs to be said. But we're now going to move to Irma, who is continuing the fight outside in the streets of Tbilisi and Batumi.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. Well, I don't feel very comfortable to be here because it's not the position I should be having as a journalist. But I'm here because I promised Mzia that I would go anywhere and everywhere to take her voice and to make her fight continue if she would stop her hunger strike when she was on a hunger strike, because it was terrifying. And I only remember one time in my life when I was so much terrified as I was when Mzia was on a hunger strike. And it was in 2008 when I was 13 and Russian tanks were invading Georgia. So now, what I want to tell you is that I often get asked, so how is it looking? Is there hope? The protests are going and, you know, days after days, where is it going? And the thing is that actually, it's not difficult to fight when you see hope or when you see some, you know, light somewhere. The bravery is to fight when you don't have logical explanation. And I think the history of Georgia is it, just shows it. You know, Georgians kept fighting under Russian Empire and before many others, under Soviet occupation, when it didn't really look that we would get out of it and we would keep our, you know, country and freedoms. And we are yet here, this tiny country. And now also, maybe sometimes you think that, you know, there are no logical hopes, but no, this is the bravery. Some people say, and I also used to say that, you know, people who are born in free Georgia or free Ukraine or, you know, after Soviet Union collapse, they do understand better the freedom and they will fight for it, you know, with more courage and bravery. What happened to Mzia and what I see around me actually make me realize that these are those who really know what it means to live without freedom, who are willing to give up everything and fight whenever there is even not a hope. And I think we Georgians have real chance because we have this determination. We just need help. I said it many, many times, and sometimes I feel like it feels pathetic, but it's truth. We are on the defense line, on the front lines. And just we need you to, you know, don't let our hand go, as Mzia said in her message. And I want you to believe in us, believe in our bravery, because this woman, she's literally giving everything. She's fighting to the end, and to the end is and can be tragic or can be victorious. And now, really, in this building, it is very much in your hands also to help that this fight will end victoriously and not tragically. For some cases, like the client of Keelan, it was too late. We cannot afford it, because if it is too late today for Mzia, then it will be too late tomorrow for others. And here are journalists and press freedom defenders as well. I want to thank them for their fight and for their belief. And I want to once again ask everyone, understand, we know freedom is more valuable than life itself, and it is worth fighting, and just help us in it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And unfortunately, it's a very emotional topic and issue and person for all of us here. So we've taken more time than we were afforded. Before we have question and answer, and you take any questions from the audience, there are MEPs here that might want to. I would like to invite you to say a few words if you'd like.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Tobias Kramer. I'm the Shadow Rapporteur for the Social Democrats. And I first of all want to thank you for coming here today and for carrying Mzia's voice, which I think you, all three of you, did tremendously. I think it's been very, very powerful. I was just with Nacho and another member of our group. We were just in Georgia. And we saw the courage that you just mentioned. We saw the courage even in the face of desperation. The last time I was there was in December, when the protests were peaking. And actually so many, and Nacho was there in May, I don't know whether you already mentioned it, but so many of the people we met then are now in prison. And we know this is not just, Mzia's case stands for so many, for hundreds of Georgians, and not just journalists, but ordinary citizens who want their right to determine the future of their country. And this is exactly why Georgian Dream is so terrified of them, because they know that they shine the light where autocracy and corruption hides. And Georgian Dream is like a vampire fearing the free press, like a vampire fears the light. And this is what we are seeing. And so in some ways, it was slightly depressing going to Georgia to see how this democratic backlash is moving forwards, but it was incredibly inspiring to see how Georgians keep up the hope, how Georgians understand the reality that is happening, understand that this is also a Kremlin playbook of intimidation, of disinformation, of trying to turn Georgia into something like Belarus, but Georgians are continuing to fight that. And I think this is why it's all the more important that we raise this awareness. This is why we went last week. This is why we support here this event, to give your voice and that of Mzia's a clear platform, and to show to everybody in the world that this is an inspiring fight, and it's a fight that is not just far away, but that concerns us also in Europe, because it is a playbook of autocracy that we see in all our countries, and that if it succeeds in Georgia, will more likely also succeed in our countries. And this is why this is a shared fight, and this is why it is also necessary that we as the European Union take this very seriously. This is why it is good to nominate Mzia for the Sakharov Prize, but I think it's equally important that we finally get serious sanctions going. It is one thing we decided in the last Strasbourg session, is that we can actually move forward with large-scale sanctions on visa restrictions, not on the people of Georgia, but on the officials who are trying to implement this corrupt regime, and to have their names so they can't get around. They have to feel the consequences of what they're doing. They are trying to imprison people like Mzia, and they have to understand what they are doing to their country, and that it will also have consequences for them. For us, it remains clear, people like Mzia, Georgians like Mzia, show that Georgia already is part of Europe, that Georgia deserves its place in the European Union, and that the doors towards the European Union must remain open, and that we must enable Georgian citizens to choose that path if they wish so, but in a way where they can have free elections and not the shamble elections we saw in the parliamentary elections last year. And so thank you so much for your courage, for the work you do with Mzia, but also thank you for bringing this to this floor and raising the awareness. We will stand with you, and we will stand with Mzia. Thank you.
Amen to that. Any other parliament members or co-organizers would like to add anything? Otherwise, we'll take questions if there are any questions. Yes, please.
Not an organizer and neither a representative, but just an IT engineer in Antwerp. I do have a question for a proper venue where debates can be held about such topics of attacks on freedom of press, but on the other hand, open access to free press by propaganda outlets and things like your colleagues mentioned, like Sputnik and so on. So where are the avenues where these topics can be debated?
Other than Rustaveli Avenue, you mean? No, just a joke. Satya, maybe, or anyone wants to take this?
I don't understand. Is this the question for Georgians or question for the European?
Rather, indeed, for the MEPs from
Yeah.
the European Parliament. Thank you.
So it was more of a comment.
I can comment on that. Listen, to be pro-Russian is completely legitimate. There are pro-Russian parties in Moldova. But the question is not to be pro-Russian. The question is, first, to hide that you have an agenda, pro-Russian agenda, before the elections, and immediately after the election, you convey to the people the things we said about the European path is finished. We are going other way. And the means to use that, and then as the European Union has been very harsh, sometimes, let's say, bordering a very thin legal line when we decided to stop the Russian propaganda. The Russian propaganda, not the pro-Russian legitimate ideas, because there are people that consider the model of society of Russia is perfectly okay for them. And we can struggle and we can try to defend democracy. But as you know, in Europe, there are many, many forces defending anti-democratic agendas. And depending on the constitutional settings, these are allowed or not. But the question, the real question, and nobody talks about that, is the fact that only after winning the election and having hid carefully the intention, Georgian immediately said to the people, stop to the European path. If you want to stop the European path and you are a real Democrat, you go to the public opinion and you say to the people, the program of the Georgian thing is to abandon the European Union. And then probably even with the rigged election, the result could have been different. And this is one of the things we have to think about. On the other hand, to mimic or to repeat or to quote the stupid statement coming from Georgian officials is not to blame the media. Meaning, we had to deal with a very nice, clever, intelligent, witty statement of Mr. Papuashvili, who is not the more clever guy in the bench, when we abandoned the country. But to quote the stupidity of others is not a professional problem. The problem is when you feed, when you finance, and when you are truly aware that you are not doing journalism, that you are doing simply propaganda. And this is the thing that you know for sure is happening in your country. We did our best. We did our best trying to curtail some outlets that were not real, let's say, professional journalists outlet, but mere propaganda, and we did it. And probably we have to think about what to do with in this scenario of Georgia. But the real progress we are now on the verge to achieve is the exception of the visa-free regime, in which you are entitled to list some people, not some passport or color of the passport or title. names. What we need at a list of names forbidden to enter in the European Union. And this is the thing that we are almost achieving after the vote we had in the parliament last week. Why? Because we find the way to circumvent the veto in the council, Hungary's veto, because this decision is only in the hands of the Commission. The exception we created allows the Commission by itself to create an exception in the visa-free regime, and this is a new framework not only dedicated to Georgia, to every other 60-something countries having visa-free regime, in which you create an exception for 3 years, and then you are entitled to list people that you are not granting visas to enter in the European Union. Meaning, no, the trick of having two passports, the trick of being a part of the family, because it's very painful. When you are talking to the civil society and the journalists there, and they pass to you this image of the wife of one of the prominent kleptocrats of the regime enjoying Paris Fashion Week. No, not for that people. And then we encountered a way. And we think we encountered a way to try to tackle this, at least for 3 years. Let's use it, and we hope from the Parliament that the Commission is using this tool wisely. And wisely, to me, is massively. Massively, not tens, not dozens, thousands of people not allowing to enter, and asking for visas probably to Orban, and then risking to be detained in other countries of the European Union.
There's a question.
Oh, I just wanted to add something in light of what was said. You mentioned about the list of names, and I think it's really important that everyone in the room is aware that Transparency International Georgia on the 28th of July, 3 months ago, produced a really important report naming 17 people. And it said this: while Georgia is on the verge of losing visa liberalization with the European Union due to the authoritarian policies of the Georgian Dream, current and former members and officials of the party themselves are buying real estate in Europe, establishing companies, and obtaining EU citizenship for their children. And that report names 17 individuals, including current and former Georgian Dream members, officials, and businessmen close to the party, who own companies and real estate in France, Germany, the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Spain, Denmark, Slovakia, Hungary, Greece, and Cyprus. And the Zia movement has produced the Zia list similarly. So there is a list there. And what I would say, as really would urge people to think, this is a case about European values. It could not be more urgent. What's happening on the streets are pro-European protests. So Zia and the protesters standing up for European values. And we now need to do the same. And can I just make 3 very quick points about just how urgent this is? Of course, we need to support the pro-democracy movement now. You've heard about the very real risks facing people and the noose tightening ever further as the days go on and as less and less is done by the international community. We also need to free Zia. This could not be more urgent about freeing Zia. And we shouldn't be hopeless about this. I mean, in all of the cases that I've done over the last 25 years, you know, with political will and creativity, you can free people once you use the leverage that you've got. I mean, look at what happened when you had the US, Canada, Germany, and others coming together and securing the release in August 2024 from Russia of such a wide range of prisoners who were both foreign nationals and Russian nationals from there. So political will, creativity, and drive, we can do it. And lastly, about Zia, I just need to say this. I mentioned briefly in my remarks about the inhuman treatment that she's sustained while in custody, and also the failing of her eyesight. This is not just urgent because of her liberty, it is urgent because of her health. The moment is now. There is leverage in this room. The European Union has leverage. European countries have leverage. We have got to use it and use it fast.
We had a question in the... Yes, please.
It's not a question. Thanks so much. My name is Giga. I'm from Georgia, living in the city where Mzia was detained, and all happened just in front of my eyes. So it has been 320 days. We are still fighting. And the only tools what's helping Georgia people today, this is events, such kind of events, what you're holding, your honorable member of parliaments. I would like to emphasize and say thanks to Promote Georgia, who organized such a great event, which is helping just the people who are standing in the street of the Rustaveli today. And also want to mention that it was really nice emphasizing the really assessed or their luxury lives still going from the exactly from the person who is just governing the one of the main propagandistic media in Georgia. I'm speaking about the TV Medi. He's real estate in London, and in one hand they are blaming West in all what's happening, but in second hand they are just going there, living and having pleasure. So Georgia's citizens who are standing today in the streets, they need events such kind happening today in European Parliament. Personal sanctions, which is really important. And I will say, maybe the officials, they are saying that we don't care about sanctions, but they care the sanctions. And this is what we are expecting from the Europe, because this is just feeding the protest today in Georgia's streets. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this comment. Any more questions? Comments? If not, then I'd like to just in a few words, we want maybe close today's event. If I can only add, I'm gonna say that not just Mzia, freedom for Mzia, but freedom of speech is at stake, and we're all hoping for your help, but there are more eloquent people here who will say it in better words. Or who said it.
Thank you so much. And I hope that one day I'll come here with Mzia, and that they should come very soon. Thank you.
I'm sure that people in the room here are kind of self-selecting and are very supportive. And I'm never a believer in just preaching to the converted. I think the important thing is to get the converted to do something. So I would just urge you, when you go out of here, take that anger that we're all feeling at what we've seen and the shock of what we're all seeing, and use it, convert it into action, because really the time is now. We mentioned earlier Daphne Caruana Galizia, and Daphne Caruana Galizia wrote a blog shortly before she died, where she said, sometimes in life you get the backup that you need a little late. And this place and all across Europe, we supported Daphne too late and stood up to what was happening in Malta too late. Let's not make that mistake with Georgia. There is a moment now when we can make a real difference. There is real urgency, and please do what you can to support Mzia, support the protesters, and support Mzia's amazing colleagues.
I will say it in Georgian. Თავისუფლება Mzia Amaglobels, თავისუფლება პოლიტპატიმრებს, თავისუფლება საქართველოს. Freedom to Mzia, political prisoners, and our country, Georgia.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Great speech. You have my cake. I wish I was a judge.
Enjoy handshake.
Yes. Yes.